Who's got more pull with the United States, Germany and the biggest economy in Europe, or smaller European countries like Ukraine and the Baltic States? No surprise if you guessed Germany, because the United States has now done a complete U-turn and given its backing to a massive gas pipeline from Russia. Ukraine and the others want it blocked, but Germany says it's essential for European energy. This is Roundtable. Hello and welcome to the programme from me, David Foster. So, as Russia gets to export its gas into Europe, there'll be delight in Moscow and Berlin. Well, what has changed since the pipeline Nord Stream 2 was described as a security threat by America? US President Biden has waived sanctions on the company behind the controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline between Russia and Germany. Biden's decision reversed long-standing US opposition to the pipeline. The US did not want its European allies to become energy dependent on Russia. Supporters of the project had lobbied the United States to drop its opposition, insisting that the pipeline is vital to both German and European energy interests. But Ukraine and the EU's Baltic states have long opposed Nord Stream 2. Ukrainian authorities say the pipeline endangers their national security and will embolden greater Russian aggression in both eastern Ukraine and Crimea. So how has Biden's pipeline U-turn affected US and European relations? Well, let us examine this subject in detail with our three experts. First of all, we go to Paris and welcome Thierry Bros, Professor in International Energy at Sciences Po, then to Costa Rica, where we see Peter Zalmayev, Ukrainian analyst and executive director of the Eurasian Democracy Initiative, and then to Berlin, and we see once again Thomas O'Donnell, energy and geopolitics analyst at the Hertie School of Government. Thomas, I'm going to start with you since you happen to be in Berlin and this pipeline makes landfall in Germany. Why do you think Biden changed his mind so very rapidly? Was it really because he said it's 99.999% finished, there's no point in blocking it?
No, I don't think it's that simple. I mean, there is some issue there. There is a discussion as to whether it would be effective. The Americans already put sanctions, I won't go through it all, but by blocking insurance companies, by blocking commissioning companies, I think the Congress, bipartisan, were quite surprised they weren't able to stop this. So it would have entailed directly sanctioning German companies who have to bring the pipes out, let the pipes out of the port. That would have been very major, and we know what's coming up. I think this has a lot to do with the fact Biden needs the Germans on board as he goes to the G7, as he goes to Brussels to talk to NATO, and ultimately it's really about the summit with Putin. I think the Russians let it be known there would probably be no summit if he had stopped this pipeline at the last minute, and they have to have this discussion.
But Thierry, a lot of Americans also still don't want this to go ahead, and Biden himself has said on many occasions he's against it. It seems a bit of a strange thing to do if it's just for the brief moment when you might want to shake hands with a Russian leader who you have no real taste for anyway.
Yes, but perhaps what you have to keep in mind is a pipe isn't finished and it is fully finished. And so therefore 99, 97 or 80% doesn't really matter. Either you can operate it or you can't operate it. Yes. And I think what we've seen here is a poker game for many, many months. And right now, you're right. I mean, the Americans still do not want this to happen. Some of the Europeans do not want this to happen. Biden is willing to be nice to Angela Merkel and so therefore has changed his mind. But I don't think it means that the pipe will go ahead and will be completely finished. I mean, he still has some option to come back and put back sanction, or there may be somebody else that will derail the system later on. I mean, we have a German election later, and the chancellor that could come in could be not in favor of this pipe. So I think the saga is not finished. It will continue. It doesn't want to be the bad guy right now. but he may be seen, may have to be the bad guy later down this year.
So, Peter, listening to this and hearing the suggestion that Joe Biden is effectively hedging his bets, and until that last little screw or washer arrives, it won't work, and he might just as well say yes now because he can say no later on. Are you given reassurance?
Well, I agree with the previous speakers and with Professor O'Donnell. Obviously, Biden's priority now, as he has stated from the very beginning of assuming his presidency, is to restore his America's Western alliance, and obviously the major ally is Germany, and Germany is very much going ahead. Well, we'll have to wait and see till September and German elections, because if the Greens win, the Greens have said that they're not going to support the project. How that's going to look if they do win, we're going to have to see. But I also agree that the Geneva summit between Biden and Putin would not have happened unless there was a precondition that the Nord Stream is given a green light, and also that Ukraine is not invited to the NATO summit that's also going to be taking place a couple of days before the Geneva summit.
Help our viewers who haven't followed this as regularly as I have and you do on a daily basis in explaining why Ukraine, which has a pipeline reaching Europe at the moment anyway, is so threatened by this other one that's coming down from Russia, crossed straight into Germany.
Well, for Ukraine, it's a very practical issue of losing about $3 billion a year. This is the figure that President Zelensky just cited at his meeting with the 3 visiting U.S. senators who are also very much against the completion of the pipeline. So Ukraine is going to be losing a lot of money, as so is Poland. For Europe, it's a larger question of economic security, not only the energy security that Germany is claiming. And Ukraine is also trying to promote this idea that Europe is going to be even less secure now that Russia will have a direct way of influencing its policies through a direct pipeline to Germany.
Well, I tell you what, let's hear from, we don't hear from him, I'm going to read it out, the words of Kirilo Budanov, Chief of Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. He says the existing Ukrainian gas pipeline not only performs a transport function, but also acts as a protection for Ukraine from possible aggression by the Russian Federation. At the same time, for Russia, Nord Stream 2 is only a tool for manipulating and achieving dominance in Europe. It's a tool for achieving dominance in Europe, Thomas. In what way?
This is true. To be a little more specific about it, this is a 20-year project that's been ramped up. The old Soviet Union, all the infrastructure to send gas to Europe had to go through former Soviet-controlled countries. Now Putin, and during his presidency, wants to reincorporate these countries, and that was a risk for him. That was a problem. He couldn't go full scale against Ukraine or some other country in that zone when his gas business depended on it. So he's had a long project to divert gas around the north through Nord Stream 1, around the south through Turk Stream, and now he wants Nord Stream 2 as well, and there's a lot of new LNG. You'll notice when he put anywhere from 100 to 150,000 troops around Ukraine this time, unlike in the past when he threatened the country, you didn't hear analysts saying, oh my God, oh my gosh, there's going to be an energy crisis in Europe because it's going to block the gas through Ukraine. The gas remaining through Ukraine, unfortunately, it's significant to Putin, but it's not a strategic threat to his business. He might sacrifice what is left if he decided he had to take part of Ukraine. And so that's what this is about. The more gas that goes through that country, if Nord Stream 2 could be blocked, and if let's say the governance of gas in Europe could be changed in various ways, and Putin again was more dependent on his business in Ukraine, it's partially, that's correct, as the minister said in Ukraine, this is a security issue for Ukraine besides just the money.
And is that something you see too, Thierry?
Yes, I think if you go back to the difference between the Soviet time and today, I mean, the technology has changed massively, and we are in a position to build those offshore pipelines, which we weren't. And the idea of the Russians has been in the last 10 years to divert this gas away from Ukraine, and as it was said, Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 perhaps, and Turk Stream. But this is also not about providing more gas to Europe. So it's the same quantity of gas. And
Yes.
the outcome is less transit fee in Ukraine. That was said. I have slightly different numbers, but we are talking about $1 billion per year of transit fee. And remember, Naftogaz, which is the Ukrainian company, is the one that provides the most taxes to the state. So again, that's also a problem in terms of economy. And then yes, if you want to be more threatening to a country, you can do this if you have no pipes or no gas going through those pipes. But I think it is I look at it as more a financial issue, but the financial issue makes Ukraine much weaker today.
Okay, so you have the finance on the one side, and you have the ability to be able to put pressure on any country that you would like to, that happens to be on your border, on the other side of the coin. So, Peter, when Budanov, the guy we just quoted, who's chief of defense intelligence in Ukraine, says 80% of the Russian troops that were deployed at Ukraine's border in March and April are still there, and he says August, when the pipeline is expected to be complete, will be Russia will be in the greatest combat readiness to start hostilities against Ukraine at the end of that month. Is it a real worry that they will use this as an excuse to invade Ukraine?
Well, I don't think that there's necessarily a connection. I think what the minister was saying is that the Russian threat is far from over. Obviously, at least in my opinion, the escalation we recently witnessed was a play to get a meeting with President Biden, and that happened. Putin got what he wanted. He needs to show to his electorate that he is reckoned with, that he is respected on the world stage, and he has a private meeting, personal meeting with the leader of the free world, Mr. President Biden. But on the other hand, we are still living with the reality that Vladimir Putin is never going to be fine with the idea of a fully independent Ukraine that's integrated into EU and, God forbid, NATO. That is a red line. And once he sees that anything challenging that red line, anything crossing that red line, he's going to ramp it up again and might actually lead to another confrontation, might actually take a bite of more Ukrainian territory.
And if the pipeline is in place, Thomas, I mean, that will assuage any of the problems that there happen to have been between the United States and Germany. What then if Russia does use it to put pressure on countries such as Ukraine?
The problem here is that Germany and the United States have very different policies for how one should confront, the transatlantic alliance should confront Russia. The United States, we sort of understand what that's about, fundamentally doesn't change over 2 or 3 presidents. Germany does not like this idea of great power competition, that the United States is pivoting to stand up to China in Southeast Asia. It's also pivoting out of the Middle East to more confront Russia in Europe. And this, half of Germany has as much trade with China as the United States, and they'd like to play the game on both sides. Now, if you ask German diplomats or German officials and German elites, why do you make this pipeline when it's a problem for Ukraine? And they will tell you quite, when they speak honestly, yes, we understand the problem Ukraine has with this. We understand there's also another pipeline through Poland and Belarus, which provides a certain security for them too. And the problem is the Germans would say, these are insecure countries. We have to get that gas out of those countries. It has to come directly to Germany, and we will redistribute it for Europe. We will see that it's distributed, and we'll have to deal with the Russians. And of course, the Russians are difficult to deal with, but we do not want the Ukrainians or the Belarus or especially the Poles at the table. Now, that is not the way the Americans see the chessboard, you might say.
A bit of a gamble if the Greens come in then, isn't it?
Well, it is. But if you look at the polls, so sort of the CDU and the Greens are sort of neck and neck. But if you listen in detail, like I do or have to here, to the leaders of the Green Party, she made it very clear in her first online debate, Mrs. Baerbock, she is anti-NATO. She does not want to be part of NATO. She wants another separate force. She does not want to spend 2% of the budget. She said that's ridiculous on NATO. She also does not want the new fighter jets here to be, nuclear enabled. So this is a big problem for the transatlantic alliance. It's a whole different approach to how to deal with Russia in Europe, and also with China.
I was quite interested, Thierry, to read something I think you put forward. others may have mentioned it as well, that one way that Russia could say, actually, we are the good guys in this is by making it more of a green project. Yeah, by bringing, I don't know, hydrogen or something, was it, down through the pipeline?
Yes, I mean, this pipe has been a saga for many, many years. And so therefore, the question is how to get out of this problem. Again, I mean, all sides can come and say, well, I've spent $10 billion in a CapEx program, and this cannot just stop, even if there is 0.1% missing. So, and again, I tend to compare this pipe to the one we've already discussed, which is Turk Stream. If you go back to the history, Turk Stream started as a South Stream pipe and then has to be rerouted to please Germany, by the way. The interesting thing is this pipe cannot just stay idle. So we need to find an outcome that is positive for everybody. And what I've been writing for a few quarters is to say, well, we want to move away from the natural gas and oil and move into the hydrogen economy. This is going to take a huge amount of time and money in this. And so therefore, we need to take any opportunity to do this. And one of them could be to say, well, instead of having this pipe that is going to push gas, let's keep the gas being pushed by Ukraine, and let's use this gas to push hydrogen, because at the end of the day, we will need more import to import hydrogen because there is less energy per quantity per volumes when you import hydrogen. So it could be one way forward. I mean, some people in Germany are also reusing this idea. Again, I don't think it's going to be operational very, very soon. I don't think it's going to be operational this August. I mean, because first of all, you need to test it, you need to ramp it up. It takes years to do this. And so therefore, for me, a positive outcome for all parties, which will be the US, Russia, Germany, and Europe, because we are talking about Germany, but we are not talking about the other European countries. I mean, the European Union and some other European countries.
Well, the data I've read is 2024, quite possibly.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Well, Peter, what about this suggestion that the Germans and indeed the members, well, I don't know who in particular in the United States, but the administration might regard other countries besides the big powerhouses as being quite shaky? You don't want them to have the energy resources and the security worries if they themselves are either dangerous or in danger. That is a sense that's being put out about Ukraine in America, isn't it?
Well, that is indeed the case, but that's also, you know, the reason that Ukraine is so shaky is Vladimir Putin, precisely Germany's partner now on completing the pipeline. He, in fact, in his attempt to keep Ukraine under heel, to keep Ukraine away from moving towards integration with European structures, he has, as you know, in the past cut off the gas supplies through Ukraine, and therefore making it less stable. And the colleague mentioned 2024. 2024 is precisely the year that Ukraine's contract with Gazprom runs out of the transit. And Ukrainians, if you ask them, even though the Russian officials, in their eagerness to complete the Nord Stream project, are claiming that this will go on, Ukrainians believe that it's not going to be renewed. And at 2024, if not earlier, it's going to be cut off, left out in the cold. And not only will it suffer the $3 billion transit fee, that's what Vladimir Zelensky is claiming, but also it will have to pay higher gas prices as a result of the inability to get reverse gas from Slovakia, Hungary, and others. So it's going to be really, really complicating efforts by Ukrainians to maintain their energy independence, and is going to make them more dependent, along with Europe, on Russia.
Thomas, in fact, this is for all of you, but I'll come to you, Thomas, on it. What is to stop Vladimir Putin enacting some people's worst fears, which is once the gas is flowing into Europe and different parts of Europe, but via Germany, what is to stop him one day just simply getting up, walking down to the gas pumping station, turning a wheel and shutting it all off?
There's very little. I mean, there's contractual obligations for a few more years, as the colleagues here have said. But after that, there's nothing to stop him. He may even do it before that and take the economic consequences, any penalties that might be in the contract. You find ministers in Russia who will, assistant ministers bragging about as soon as we can, we're going to start taking that pipeline apart. We need some of those pumping stations, other places, power of Siberia too. This is the rhetoric you'll hear on the Russian side. And if you look at what Putin, it was Medvedev. He was the person in Gazprom who was responsible for Nord Stream 2 originally. When they first signed the contract for Nord Stream 2, he made it very clear. He said, as long as the sun shines and as long as the moon, comes out, there will never be any more gas through Ukraine. And we're going to make sure when this pipeline is finished. Now, later they backed down from that because in the interim, they still had to use, it didn't kind of work the way they thought. In the interim, they had to use Ukraine. But I've seen Russian officials show graphs in talks where they show the necessity of putting pipelines around the north and south of Europe to escape what they see as security risks in Ukraine, Ukraine, Poland, and Belarus. And it's exactly what I was saying earlier. And he can keep some some small amount of surge capacity through Ukraine if it makes Merkel look better in Washington. But it's not something that's any longer strategic. It's something that he would sacrifice if he needs to grab a land corridor between Russia and Crimea. It's not enough to stop him. So this is a big problem.
Yeah,
and Biden got this dumped on his lap.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
Thierry, are those fears well placed that he could one day, if you flick a switch to turn off a gas pipeline, he could do so?
Maybe. I mean, I'm not in his head, but I think the experience of the 2006 and 2009 crisis are also in the head of the Europeans. So we've been looking at security of supply. We've made a more liberalized and a more diverse market. As was said earlier, there is more LNG coming in the market. So I'm not so sure. I mean, there will be economic consequences, long-term economic consequences.
I suppose what I'm trying to get at is an idea that America wants to stymie, or had wanted to stymie, a gas pipeline from Russia because it wanted to deliver its own fuel to Europe. It wasn't that it was worried about the security implications. It was simply that it wanted to do a commercial deal. And I'll come to you in a second, Peter, because I see you nodding.
On this one, if I may, I just think economics, we need to go back to economics 101. I mean, pipe gas from Russia is the cheapest that we can get in terms of cost, not in terms of price, because the price is the same for everybody on the market. But it's the cheapest in terms of cost. And this is why gas from market share is 40%. And this is why they could increase their market share, but they don't want for competitive issues. So the way I view the market is that there is 60% of the market that is open for the rest. And the United States, the LNG competes for those 60%, but they do not compete for the 40% gas from market share because this is low cost and nobody can be cheaper than them and can eat into this market.
Okay, so Peter, is it, as I saw you agree, I know, Thomas, you want to come in, but time's our enemy. Is it an economic argument that this could be a danger, or is it simply a security argument that they could turn it off one day?
I think it's both, and definitely they will turn it off one day, as history has shown. And, going back to the issue of America being interested in supply its own gas to Europe and why Biden is overriding it, whichever you look at it, Putin is standing to win. He is, once again, about sowing discord within Western society, inside the United States. Republicans are up in arms against this project. Biden is overriding their will, is going ahead to basically give the green light to the project.
And everybody knows that
Germany.
At any moment he could change his mind. But coming towards the end of the programme, Thomas, I know you wanted to say something.
The United States realizes that this gas from Russia is going to be supplied approximately the same amount to Europe no matter what, because it's cheap and so forth. The question is the route. And the route is a geostrategic question. It's also a geoeconomic question, all right? And that's where the difference is. U.S. developed its LNG. I mean, the first fracking was 2005. Maybe when did they start supplying LNG? 5-6 years later. This predates all that. This is not what it's about for the United States. Sure, they'd like to sell LNG, but that's not what this is about.
Okay.
Number two, I just wanted to point out this summit is not only Ukraine. Biden needs Putin on board, or he can't make a deal with Iran. Putin can scupper that deal. There's also many other questions on the table. This is like big, big time
it's wheels
geopolitics.
within wheels. Thierry, we're running out of time. You want a final word?
No, I fully agree. It is a complex, and it's all about the route. And I believe it's you have to look at the route in this, and not the volumes of gas. And for me, the US have been exporting LNG since 2016, and prices today are at record levels. So both US and Russia are making a lot of money out of providing gas to Europe.
Peter, final word from you.
Well, the final word is, once again, economic power is fungible into political power and political control, and no one's been better at it than, unfortunately, Vladimir Putin, and he's going to achieve it again.
And it's all about a little piece of metal that stretches about 1,200 kilometers and carries gas in it. And look at the implications of having that running between Russia and Germany. So many wheels within wheels. Thank you very much indeed for coming on Roundtable. Great to see a couple of you again. Thierry, nice to welcome you to the programme. We maybe have you on another occasion, if you enjoyed it, that is. If you enjoyed this programme, go to our YouTube channel. It's TRT World Roundtable YouTube. You can catch up with almost 1,000 editions of Roundtable there, if you've got time. From me, David Foster, from the Roundtable team, we thank you for your company. Hope to have you with us on another occasion. Goodbye for now.